Let's go back to this Ozempic story now, because, of course, a lot of people are getting very excited about it, that it will help heart attacks, strokes and other weight-associated conditions. But GP and medical writer René Hoendekamp, who you'll know from this channel, is with us now. And, René, you don't quite share this enthusiasm, do you? What is the data actually telling us?
Yeah, I mean, we must remember, first of all, that this is actually first published in November 23 and is a rehash of the data today and hasn't yet been published. It's been presented at a conference. The data has been funded by Novo Nordisk, who makes the drug, and all of the researchers are also funded by it. And lots of the doctors who are out today saying it's wonderful are also funded by Novo. So we mustn't forget that. Now, this went over 3 years and 4 months. It was 17,000 people. It was an RCT, which is gold standard. And it had an end point of death by a heart attack or stroke, or a non-fatal heart attack or stroke. And it found that in the treatment arm, 6.5% of people had the end point, heart attack or stroke. And in the placebo arm, only 8.2. So this is not a fifth reduction. That in itself is not true. It's actually about a 1% reduction. When you then realise that 6% of the people in the treatment arm withdrew from the trial because of side effects and adverse events, and 8% in the placebo, you have to ask yourself, are the people that would have gone on to have heart attacks or strokes actually the people that withdrew because they had more side effects? So this is a completely flawed study. So then you ask the authors, can we look at your data? And they said no. So it's paid for by the drug company. You're not allowed to look at the data. It's not a fifth reduction. And there were a lot of people who couldn't continue the trial. But what we've got here, Bev, once again, is on every single front page of a newspaper today, people are being told that they're going to, if they take this drug for life, they won't have heart attacks, even if they don't have diabetes. And there is a collusion between big pharma and media to sell this to the public, who will run forward to their GP and ask for the drug.
Well, just so, René, it's very interesting there. This study is funded by who exactly?
By Novo Nordisk, who make semaglutide.
Who make Ozempic?
Yeah, well, they make semaglutide, which was actually the drug that was under comparison here, and that is actually the ingredient of Ozempic and Wegovy and some others that are coming.
So semaglutide is the active ingredient, effectively, in this drug. And just to explain, because we haven't said this, what does it do to help you lose weight? What is the mechanism of action?
So it interferes with pathways in your brain that actually tell you when you're full or not. So people taking it no longer feel so hungry, so they eat less. The problem with that, Bev, is at the moment you stop taking it, you feel hungry again and you put the weight on. So most doctors who are out there championing this accept that it is a drug that you will have to stay on for life.
A lot of people don't overeat because they're hungry, though. They overeat for all sorts of emotional reasons, comfort eating, sometimes just boredom. Does it help that as well? Do you actually feel full, that you can't eat anymore?
You do. You feel full because it slows down your gastric emptying. So you're not going to the loo quite so much, although most people will get diarrhea and vomiting when they start taking it. But ultimately, the idea is that you feel fuller and you're not hungry. And that says to us that actually, when you eat less food, you lose weight.
But René, of course, if you take the drug and it does cut people's obesity levels, that long-term is better for the NHS when you consider what obesity is now costing the NHS. Isn't it the worst, the most expensive treatment they have to treat? It's worse than cigarette smoking now, I think.
It is. It's about 19 billion a year, Andrew. However, we don't really know that yet because there's no long-term data on this particular drug. And there are some pretty horrible side effects. So about 1 in 100 people will get pancreatitis. Now, when you get pancreatitis, your risk of pancreatic cancer is increased for about 3 years after that event. Pancreatic cancer is very expensive to the NHS, but also kills you. Kills you very quickly because it's very silent. A lot of people get hair loss. There's now reports of psychosis. So it's affecting suicidality and mood. There are people that are losing so much weight, they're losing their muscle mass. There's gastrointestinal effects. There are so many side effects that we just don't know how those will play out in the long term. And let's not forget, every single person on this trial over the age of 45 was already obese or overweight. If they had actually not got to that point, they wouldn't have any of these things that the NHS is now dealing with. And when you look at the report that was out yesterday about childbirth trauma, we are missing 2,500 midwives in this country. As a result, babies are dying, women are suffering intolerable trauma in their what should be the happiest moment of their life. Should we be spending our money in the NHS on something which can be controlled by responsibility and actions that you take in life? Or should we be spending it on making childbirth safer for women, for example?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when this Ozempic story first broke, I remember being on the telly and saying, we've just given up now on helping people to lose weight or encouraging people to take personal responsibility. And yet, 6 months later, we're not having that conversation anymore. We very quickly get conditioned, don't we, unless we stop and go, hang on a minute, this drug might be the silver bullet that we've all been looking for. You can just lose all the weight, because people do struggle and it is complicated, and I do sympathise. But
I do too, Bev. I do. And I agree with you. And we are in an obesogenic society. But what we've got here is we need to put this money into, and government policy into, stopping almost 80% of a lot of people's diet being ultra-processed food. Because ultra-processed food is making people fat.
Yeah.
Big food from benefiting from that, and then big pharma are stepping in to make them not fat. We need to actually get people back to understanding where food comes from, understanding how to cook it, understanding what happens when you put lots of additives in and why that is no good for them. We need to get back to educating people about self-help, and the body is a wonderful thing if you look after it.
Yeah, Renee, thank you so much. What a fabulous dose of balance.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And fascinating that the drug company behind the major ingredient, Ozempic, funded the study.
Most drugs out there are funded.